Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of NFL Dash. I'm Cody Schoeler here with Ryan Root as always. And Ryan, before we get into what we have to talk about today, I want to get your opinions on real quick on Julio Jones going to the Titans. If you are watching this and you didn't see our episode last week, we spent about 20 minutes talking about Julio Jones. And spoiler alert, I said he was going to go to the Titans, and I nailed it. That's really the first big prediction on this show for one of us to get. We haven't really done very many. We've done some smaller ones, but really the first big one. So I'm proud of myself for that. But yeah, give me your quick thoughts. We spent a lot of time giving our thoughts on Julio Jones last week, so we won't rehash that completely. But what do you think, just real quick, about that?
Well, I thought he was going to go to the Patriots, and then there was a lot of reports and conversation around the Seahawks, which I wasn't really buying much into. I don't think really anybody was. But Titans is a pretty, they were among the top candidates for him.
Yeah.
It's not incredibly surprising. I will say what's also not surprising, but just kind of makes me shake my head when I look at it, is all the Titans fans thinking that they're now like AFC powerhouses because of one player. I'm not saying Julio Jones is a bad receiver by any means, but when people are saying they're going to have the best offense in the league this next year, I think we need to slow our horses down a little bit and see what goes on. But it'll be awesome to see what Julio does in Tennessee. He's not going to be wearing number 11. He might be wearing one of the single-digit numbers that some of those players are trying to push for, and we'll see what the Titans can do, but I'm just glad that Julio has a chance to. We actually have a chance to see Julio in the postseason again, so I'm excited for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I agree. This isn't really moving the needle for the Titans that much. They're not Super Bowl contenders now that they have Julio Jones, but I think they're favorites in the AFC South now. I think it does a little bit more. It boosts them a bit. That offense is going to be really scary. And if you're trying to really compete with a quarterback like Ryan Tannehill, who's good but not great, the best thing to do is surround him with a bunch of weapons. And he has, this maybe not on the field scariest, but certainly the scariest group of weapons if you were to run into them in an alley. A.J. Brown, Julio Jones, and Derrick Henry look like they could be the cast of a Marvel film. So, it's going to be it's going to be a fun offense for sure. It certainly helps the Titans, but I don't think it really changes the dynamic of the NFL that much. And mainly because the most important position is quarterback. And we're going to talk about our top 5 quarterbacks. Spoiler alert, Ryan Tannehill is not one of them. One of the reasons why the Titans are not these big Super Bowl contenders. But we're going to get into our top 5. Ryan, do you want to start at 5 or 1? I'll let you pick.
I'll start at 5, but I also want to quickly say this is a segment that Cody and I are planning for, kind of like a weekly sort of thing with different positions in the league. We're starting with quarterbacks this week, but we'll get into, tight ends, receivers, corners, linebackers, all sorts of things.
To help us get through the off season leading up to when there actually starts to be more stuff to talk about.
Yeah, so obviously there's a ton of great quarterbacks in the league. And I feel like we're now in like the golden age of quarterbacks. I think we kind of have been, but there's a ton of great quarterbacks, and it would honestly be harder to make a top 10 list than it would top 5, because I think everybody's got the same sort of people floating around. I will say first and foremost, for an honorable mention, I'll put Baker Mayfield outside of the top 5, around that 6th spot, or maybe lower, or maybe higher.
Him at 6?
Yeah, I'm kind of shocked to put him there too, because you would have asked me last year or 2 years ago, I would have said, he's not going to be top 10 for a while. But judging off of this last season, he's matured a lot. He has a great offense to go off of. He's got playoff experience now. The Browns are one of the the front runners for the AFC Championship, if not the Super Bowl. So I'll put Baker as an honorable mention. But at number 5, I have Tom Brady, where I think we can all agree, look, the guy's the GOAT. We get it. Tons of rings, tons of MVPs. I understand. The guy just won a Super Bowl. But in terms of his playmaking ability and his range on offense, it's finite, right? We know what Tom Brady is capable of. He's not going to be throwing 50, 60-yard bombs downfield like some other people on this list have the potential of doing so. And the guy's not very mobile, and he's got about the greatest receiving core in the league to help him out. Maybe the greatest receiving core of all time, to be honest with you. So he's got weapons on weapons to work with, but it doesn't take away from the fact that he's got a great IQ at quarterback. So I have Tom Brady at 5.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've got him as 5 as well. But for some honorable mentions for me, there wasn't really anybody that I considered in that top 5. Like you mentioned, I think the 5 best are kind of solidified. But I think there's a lot of guys who can get themselves into that conversation. Like, I mean, the way Dak Prescott was playing last year was absolutely insane.
He floated around that for me as well. Yeah.
Lamar Jackson has been there before after he was MVP.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, he certainly has the potential, if he can do that, if he can recapture that form, to be, just a dominant guy. And then, there's a few that are a little bit further away. Like, I don't think Justin Herbert's there yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if he gets there really soon. And then there's a lot going on with Deshaun Watson, but in terms of on the field, he has the talent to be there. But I've got Tom Brady at 5 as well. I think, people thought he was declining. I know I thought he was declining. When he was in New England, it just wasn't necessarily the best place for him at the time. But when you get a guy of his just ability and mentally and physically, throw into Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Antonio Brown, you can see, the fact that he's the greatest quarterback of all time. And even at 43, when you have that type of cast and that type of offense, he can still be a top 5 guy. And I have him at number 5. And then, so that's where we agree. And then we agree a little bit later. I won't give it away, but unsurprisingly, at a specific place. But we actually agreed 2 more times. But so I have Russell Wilson at my number 4. You have Josh Allen. So I will let you go with this, and I guess we can knock these guys kind of both out at once. Talk about them now.
Right. So Josh Allen, had obviously the best year of his career this past year. It's his first season with Stephon Diggs, and they clicked exceptionally. The Buffalo offense absolutely tore up the AFC East and really tore up the AFC as a whole outside of Kansas City. The one thing I have on Josh Allen that knocks him out of, anywhere higher on this list is he's still not perfect in terms of decision making. In terms of, he'll still have some kind of wacky throws, or he'll try to do too much on his feet. We kind of saw it a little bit in the playoffs where he'll throw some scary balls, and we're like, wow, that could have been a pick 6, or that could have been a fumble. I do have him above Tom Brady, though. Yes, the GOAT, I understand, but in terms of currently, right now, I'd rather have Josh Allen on my team in terms of his athleticism at 6'4", I believe he is, or something like that.
Yeah, he's a big guy. Taller.
Yeah,
he is
big and physical
6'5".
guy.
Okay, just a bit. Yeah, no. We'll hit on Josh Allen. I have him at my number 2, which
I think is exceptionally high. But
he was second in MVP last year, so the league kind of just thought he was the second best quarterback last year. So, and I'm not saying that is all I'm going on. I think I'm leaning a bit more on last year than kind of collective career, because the year before was a bit, and then his rookie year he was a little bit, he was a rookie, he was learning. So I'm putting much more stock into this past season, what he did, because I think if he can do that again, then I think he certainly will be number 2. And so I'm putting a little bit more into that, and I think there are a lot of reasons to believe that, and to think that this was more of a kind of, more of something that's going to keep going than a fluke, because like you mentioned, he had Stephon Diggs for the first time, and just getting a receiver who, is a top receiver. I'm sure we'll talk about him whenever we get to receivers, potentially, can help a guy like that. And the biggest thing with him is just the accuracy. And he was much more accurate last year, getting to throw to Stephon Diggs, who's an elite deep threat, getting to throw to Cole Beasley, who is an elite, just kind of possession, get open guy. We really saw him develop. And, this isn't a guy who did it 8 years in, or to where we were wondering, oh, is this real? Is this a fluke? I mean, he did it at a point where the guys make leaps. So and then not to mention his rushing ability. I mean, I think he is the best red zone or goal line rusher that the Bills have. And so, I mean, I think that's just huge.
Well, let's put it this way. He's what I think people wanted Cam Newton to turn into in terms of
and I mean,
a dual threat ability.
Yeah, and what Cam Newton was in those years. But I mean, Josh Allen has had 8, 9, and 8 rushing touchdowns. That's really good. And so to add that on, his playmaking ability, I mean, we've seen some scrambles that are just insane. The dude has an absolute cannon, might have the best just arm strength in the league. And the fact that he's putting it all together and he's matured and the decision-making has gotten a lot better and may only get better. I mean, I just think, to me, what he did last year, I think that he has a huge opportunity to just improve and to be that guy. But we'll go to my guy who I had at number 4, who is Russell Wilson. And, I mean, you look at these guys, I mean, they're all absolutely insane. And, I mean, you could argue for any of these guys at, you could make an argument for any of these guys at 1 or 2 or whatever. But Russell Wilson, for me, I mean, I don't think he's not at 4 because that I don't believe in him or anything. I think he's absolutely incredible, but I just think he's been a little bit underwhelming. A lot of that has to do with kind of the offense, and who knows, I think we could see a lot more from him. But, for me, putting him at number 4, I mean, he's the 4th best quarterback in the league. That's really good. And, I wouldn't be surprised if we see him play to his utmost potential, and I would have no problem saying he's the 1st or the 2nd best. But right now, I think there are specifically 3 guys that I think are playing better than him right now.
And it's not saying that Russell Wilson's last season was incredible by any. I mean, there's obviously quarterbacks on this list that had either better seasons or more notable seasons. I mean, Russell Wilson in the first quarter of the season, we're all thinking he's going to break the touchdown record. Absolutely tore it up. You were talking about Josh Allen being at 2. Well, Josh Allen being at 2 and Russell Wilson being at 4. Well, for me, I have Josh Allen at 4 and Russell Wilson at 2. And we can kind of get into our 3rd pick here in a second because we both agree on that bit. But Russell Wilson, I think, has an ability that obviously very few quarterbacks have. It's making plays. It's putting points on the board, no matter what the stakes. The one thing that I can say about Russell Wilson confidently is, who do you really want to have at quarterback for a game-winning drive? Do you want Aaron Rodgers? Do you want Tom Brady? Do you want Patrick Mahomes? Do you want Josh Allen? If you ask me, there's not really a better quarterback than Russell Wilson.
I want Patrick Mahomes.
Sure. But you can't count on Patrick Mahomes every single time. And you can't really count on any quarterback every single time. But I'll tell you what, Russell Wilson was a yard away from getting two Super Bowls in his first, 5 seasons, right? I mean, it's insane the amount of things he's had to do with everything he's had to work with. He has not had a Pro Bowl receiver until this year in DK Metcalf. Tyler Lockett was a Pro Bowl kick returner. Okay, Doug Baldwin was a Pro Bowler, I believe, but that's the only other Pro Bowl receiver he had during Russell Wilson's tenure. The fact that he's made that work, he had Jimmy Graham, kind of take a dip that I don't think really any Seahawks fans are really expecting, and of course the offensive line has been an absolute roller coaster ride over the course of his career. All of that, and now this last year, the Seahawks have a dwindling defense that kind of figured out its footing towards the end of the year. But with a dwindling defense, he was really doing everything that he could. The one knock I will have on Russell, he does way too much at some inappropriate times where instead of having a tipped pass at the defensive line, go down to the ground, Russell Wilson's trying to volleyball tap it to get it to a receiver, and then it's a pick six. There's some times where you're like, what is this? What is going through his head? Is he really trying to have like this? There are some moments where he has great chemistry with a receiver and he can make some crazy, helmet catch-esque play, with a receiver. But then there's other times where it doesn't work. And that's the big knock that I have on Russell. But if you take away the dwindling defense this past season, I mean, that with the offensive kind of coordinator situation, the Seahawks would have been in the NFC title game. I think Russell Wilson will never be able to outrun the kind of the media's agenda on him in terms of being, oh yeah, he's good, but he's not the MVP. He'll be second in MVP voting one year, but Lamar Jackson is Michael Vick 2.0. So he's never really going to get to that point, and he's going to be one of those quarterbacks. He's going to be one of those big what ifs in terms of what if he did win an MVP instead of Lamar Jackson, things like that. That's all. I mean, I could rant about Russell Wilson all day, but I think a lot of people don't really understand how great he really is.
And I think whenever you do a list like this, it just comes down to how you're looking at it. Because if you're looking at it more than just last year, if you're looking at the past couple of years, you don't even have to go to 5 if you want to go even the past 3 years. Placing more of an emphasis on the past few years. But Russell Wilson's been an elite quarterback for a very long time. I mean, Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady both had kind of dips in the past few years when they, the production wasn't there. Russell Wilson really hasn't for, the past 5 years when some of these guys weren't even in the league yet that we have on our list. He's been great. So the consistency is another reason that, really boosts him up. But we can move on to our collective number 3, the guy we both have at number 3. I'll let you lead it off. And that's Aaron Rodgers.
It doesn't matter what team he's going to play for this next year, whether it be the Packers, whether it be the Detroit Lions, for all I know. Whatever team Aaron Rodgers.
Maybe the Detroit Lions.
Whatever,
like the weapons he has in Green Bay, he'll have a nightmare in Detroit.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what team Aaron Rodgers plays for. He's always going to make something happen. He's always going to orchestrate an offense to some degree. I mean, take it this way. I know you and I have talked about it before in the past. The Packers almost had the best, or arguably had the best first-round draft pick 2 seasons ago with Jordan Love last season.
I've got a nice, I might be one of the only pro Jordan Love draft choices out there.
It is one of the best first-round draft picks from last year because Aaron Rodgers just saw it and said, all right, well, let's just have an MVP season and have a touchdown here with Devontae Adams. Like,
they drafted a power-up for Aaron Rodgers with pissing him off and making him play good. So I think that's worth it because
Jordan Love to Aaron Rodgers is like a mushroom to Mario is how we can.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he had an incredible season that nobody was expecting last year. And if we make this list a year ago, Aaron Rodgers maybe is at 5 because of like a legacy type thing, but he wasn't playing like an MVP anymore.
The only knock I do have on Aaron Rodgers, because there has to be at least one kind of all these quarterbacks. Is he going to get to a Super Bowl anytime soon? I mean, the NFC Championship these past 3 years now have just been Aaron Rodgers just completely falling apart, and there's a lot of finger pointing going on of whose fault that really is at Green Bay. I know this last NFC Championship game, they're pointing fingers at their play decision late in the game, and everyone wants to point fingers at everyone else but Aaron Rodgers. And at some point, I mean, there's got to be some point where Aaron Rodgers understands, maybe I didn't play my best game. Maybe I didn't make the best decisions, things like that. I'm not saying he is the number one person at fault for that loss, but that's the one knock I have on Aaron Rodgers is that you can't really ever criticize the guy, it seems. Yeah.
I mean, Aaron Rodgers has a bit of the Russell Wilson syndrome that you're kind of talking about, and the fact that his defense has played like garbage, like almost every playoff loss not every, but recently, like the defense has really been the big factor that has kind of screwed him over. I mean, he's played pretty well in some of these games, and the defense has kind of screwed him over and allowed a bunch of points. I know I've heard that when a bunch of Aaron Rodgers talk is happening. And I mean, if Kevin King doesn't get, absolutely torched on I don't even know how many consecutive plays by the Bucs last year. They just targeted him play after play, and I think they got a pass interference on a 3rd or 4th down. Then Aaron Rodgers gets the ball back with a chance to win that game, and he's a guy at the end that is incredibly special as well. But I mean, regardless of that, I mean, what he did in the regular season was insane. Like we said, I mean, I'm a pro Jordan Love draft choice. Just if it means you draft him and Aaron Rodgers plays like that, then I think the Packers would have done it. Not to mention getting a guy who's maybe the quarterback of the future. And if you're kind of setting aside all this drama that's happening with him, who knows if he's even going to play for Green Bay this year? I think if he wants to play, he will. Maybe he doesn't even play again. Maybe he goes and hosts Jeopardy. Who knows? But if he does play, I mean, he's just insane. Look at what he's done. He's always had an elite receiver, which was not like they were necessarily elite before him. I mean, he's not necessarily made them, but guys like Jordy Nelson and Devontae Adams and Randall Cobb, like guys who weren't these premier first round. I mean, he's never had a first round wide receiver. These aren't insane guys that are coming in. He's helping to develop these guys and helping Devontae Adams become the best receiver, one of the best receivers in the league. So I mean, just the fact that like what he can do, he's got the kind of the Patrick Mahomes before Patrick Mahomes thing, where the throws and the plays that he can make were incredibly insane, especially if not the not the best athleticism.
I don't think there's a better quarterback in the league at making a Hail Mary work. I mean, like,
oh no, he's the best Hail Mary quarterback of all time for sure.
It's indescribable how he can get Hail Marys to go some of these times. I mean,
but it's possible that, I mean, who knows what happens at the end of Patrick Mahomes' career, but like he could retire as the most talented quarterback ever. Tom Brady's obviously the GOAT, but I don't know if there's a guy who's ever had more arm talent than him. Just the side arm, all these kind of crazy throws that he can do, regardless of, it hasn't paid off on the field for the best that it could, but he's incredibly talented. And we've alluded to it a lot, but we're going to hit on our number one guy. We both had the same guy. Surprise, surprise. It's Patrick Mahomes. I don't know when he won't be number one on this list. Maybe if he loses a leg or maybe his right arm. I'm sure lefty Patrick Mahomes would still be. I'm sure
lefty Patrick Mahomes is still top 10 at the least.
I'd have him in my top 5 still, without a limb or something. But he's just an incredible. He's revolutionized the position in just a few years. I mean, the fact that he could come in after in his first year as a full-time starter after starting just the last game of the previous season and not only win MVP, but have one of 3 50-touchdown performance seasons of all time with Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. I mean, just one of the best quarterback seasons of all time right out the gate is incredible. I mean, he's won a Super Bowl. He's gotten to another. And the year before he won the Super Bowl, it wasn't for Dee Ford jumping off sides, probably gets to another Super Bowl. He's just unstoppable. There's nothing you can do. I'm not a defensive coordinator, but I don't think that there's any defensive coordinator that goes into the week going, all right, here's how we're going to stop Patrick Mahomes. I think they go into it going, here's how we're going to not let Patrick Mahomes throw for 400 yards. That you can't stop him. He can do whatever he wants on the field. He throws. I mean, he already has a handful of the most insane throws of all time. I mean, he's just a freak athlete, and just an incredible quarterback.
So, I mean, yeah, he's number one. I think anybody with anybody with a brain can put him at number one. Because think of it this way: I took a look at the Super Bowl before it happened, a couple months back, and thought, if Patrick Mahomes wins this game, it's not only he's winning against Tom Brady, it's not only he's winning in the first ever road Super Bowl, it's not even any of those. It's not even any of those things. If he wins this Super Bowl, I mean, I take a look at what this was his 4th year that he was in the league. I take a look as a
starter.
Right. So 4th year in the league, 3rd year as a starter. I take a look at players' first 4 years in the league, and I'll include the first season where the guy didn't even play and say it's the best 4-year start in history if he won the Super Bowl. I'd have to look into it further now that he didn't, but even that he didn't, even though it was the first game he played for Kansas City where there was not a touchdown scored on offense for the Chiefs. I think of it this way. The NFL released a top 100 like plays of the year. Patrick Mahomes' incomplete pass on fourth down towards the end of the game where he's parallel with the ground, about 6 inches off the ground, throws it, and it bounces off the hands of the receiver.
The dude dropped it. Patrick Mahomes completed that pass.
The fact that there's a top 100 play and it wasn't even a play, really. I mean, that should just describe that the guy is going to be he's going to be the poster child for the NFL for the next 10 years at least. He's going to make $500 million just off of being the best quarterback in the league alone. Yes, he has Tyreek Hill. Yes, he has Travis Kelce. Yes, he has a good offensive line and a decent defense. He's also got easily the best arm in the league in terms of just throw power.
And accuracy and everything.
Accuracy and the ability to not even have to look at the receiver to get him the ball. It is indescribable, and I don't think you could ask someone 10 years ago, hey, do you think there's a quarterback that could ever do these things and play in the National Football League and win MVP and Super Bowls? And people would say, no, I think it's going to be people who actually look downfield when they pass the ball. So it's Patty Holmes, and it's Patty Holmes by a mile.
Yeah, I don't know what – I mean, when he has a down year, it's still like I guess he could technically win MVP. Like, I mean, he's the most valuable player in the league for as long as he's in the league. And, I mean, a down year for him is still a career year for almost anybody else, maybe not of these couple guys. But I want to move on to, instead of talking about the biggest superstars at the most important position, I want to talk about some guys who are looking to break out this year and some guys who can kind of, take that next step forward, whether that's from star to superstar, whether it's from backup to starter, whether it's from rotation guy to, really important player. So I'll let you lead it off and let me know who is. We're going to go through 3 players, some breakout prediction players. I'll let you start it off.
First off, I want to say we understand Justin Herbert is like the main guy who we're all expecting to have a great sophomore season. He is not on my list, but I will acknowledge that. I'm excited for Justin Herbert as well. But I do have one quarterback on my list here that I'm a really big fan of, the move he had this offseason, and that's Sam Darnold. I think is going to have finally, kind of a borderline Pro Bowl season, I think, going into this next year. Notice how I didn't say playoff team or Super Bowl winner or, NFC championship contender. I'm just saying Sam Darnold's going to prove why he was the 4th overall pick.
Third overall pick.
Sorry. Oh, that was Denzel Ward. That was 4th. Sorry. Sam Darnold's going to prove why he was selected and why the Jets front office absolutely destroyed all of his momentum. But now he's on an up-and-coming team with a young and fun receiving core and arguably the best running back in the league in the backfield. So now that he's got people to work with, he's in a competitive division that he actually can – he's actually not going to lose every single division game every time they play the Patriots, Dolphins, and Bills. No, he's going to play the Falcons, Saints, and the reigning champs twice a year.
Could still lose all of them, but it won't be the same.
Could still lose all of them, but it's going to be competitive at least.
Yeah.
I mean, anytime the Jets were on Monday Night Football against the Patriots or some other team, you were just watching to see how bad they were going to lose. You weren't. I don't even think Jets fans were watching the game to see like, let's see if we beat the Patriots. Like
they wanted to lose. They wanted Trevor Lawrence because they were tired of Sam Darnold.
So. And I hope Zach Wilson has a fun time with the newly constructed New York Jets. But Sam Darnold's going to have a great year. He's going to have DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson to throw to, and it's going to be a lot more fun to play football in Carolina.
Yeah, getting away from Adam Gase has been a nice bonus for, Ryan Tannehill and plenty of other players before. So I would not be surprised if, he does play a lot better. I think this is not necessarily his last chance, but I mean, he had the Jets.
At this point, we can consider the bust conversation if he does not perform well with the Panthers.
Because in New York, you had a lot of things you could say, oh, it's the Jets, it's this and that, and they were certainly valid. Might not have been the reason that he struggled. He could just be a struggling quarterback, but now, maybe not after 1 year, but maybe 2 years, it's kind of going to be who is Sam Darnold. So I'm certainly excited to see, the potential that he has, which there certainly is a ton of. He does have great weapons for once. So, yeah, I mean, I'm interested to see what that's going to be. I don't know if he, quarterback breakouts have, been the likes of Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. So I don't know if we're going to see that level of a Sam Darnold breakout, but we could certainly see.
We'll see a more happy Sam Darnold.
Yeah, we'll certainly see a large improvement from his play, hopefully, or else the Panthers might be moving on soon. But we're going to go from a former Jet to a current Jet, and I'm going to go with another highly drafted New York Jets player. And that's Quintin Williams, who, when he came out of Alabama, was an absolutely dominant defensive tackle. The Jets took him number 3 overall, I believe, as well. And I believe he went after, it was Kyler Murray, Nick Bosa, and then Quintin Williams. And he was rightfully in that conversation, but those guys have taken off. Quintin Williams has not. Again, it's the Jets, and they might just ruin everything they touch. But he silently had a much better year last year. I looked up pass rush win rate, which is something that I like to see, because sacks can be misleading sometimes. Sometimes you get to the quarterback and somebody gets there first, or he just makes you miss because you're trying to sack Russell Wilson or, one of these Lamar Jackson. But he had one of the highest defensive tackle pass rush win rates, which, says that he's beating his blocker, which is incredibly important. And, I don't know if there was anybody else on the Jets defensive line that was even, needed to be blocked or needed to be worried about being blocked. So the fact that he was doing that then was huge. I mean, he's going into his 3rd year, I believe. So, maybe it takes 2 years for the guy to figure it out. That certainly wouldn't be unprecedented. And now the Jets have Robert Saleh, who was led an absolute incredible defensive unit in San Francisco, specializing in the defensive line. So if there's anybody that can really bring it out of him and get him to play at the level that he is, that he was drafted to play at, I think it'd be Robert Saleh. So, I'm looking for some bigger things from Quintin Williams this year.
I think he's going to have plenty of opportunities to have, big kind of game-winning plays or game-winning moments, considering, and again, this isn't a knock on the guy, but considering they're going to have a rookie quarterback playing where rookie quarterbacks make mistakes and rookie quarterbacks may not get the chance to have the ball to come back late in the game. It's all going to be dependent on a defense. And
they're going to have to step up.
If it's a tied ball game and the Jets opponent has the ball with 2 minutes left and it's 3rd and 10, I feel like Quintin Williams will make quite a difference, knowing that obviously his team's going to have a better chance of winning the game going into this next year in these close moments. But he's going to have a lot of opportunities to have those big moments, considering he has been on the team for now. This is going to be his 3rd season. Like, he's got kind of veteran status. He's got Robert Saleh backing him up. This is kind of the same thing with Sam Darnold. I feel like he's going to want to show up to practice more often now. I feel like he's going to want to show up and actually have that feeling in the back of his head, like, oh, we're not just playing to have Trevor Lawrence be in New York this offseason. No, we're actually playing to we want to be New York's team, or sorry, we want to be New Jersey's team. So I think he's going to have a great year.
Yeah, I sure hope so. I mean, we've seen Robert Saleh kind of get, revitalize Eric Armstead's career in San Francisco. He was viewed as a bit of a bust, and
Hmm.
he played a little better. Couldn't do it with Solomon Thomas, but that might be a lost cause. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just a perfect storm for Quintin Williams, and showing improvement already, then getting a coach that should be able to use him to the best of his abilities. I think it just sets up for a big year from him. So who's your second breakout guy to watch?
So we're going to stay on the defensive line, change up teams a little bit here, and you could argue whether or not the guy's first season was a breakout season alone. Uh, but I have Chase Young, who's now going into his second season.
How are you classifying this breakout? Because
I think he has the potential of being Defensive Player of the Year.
Okay, that's what I was going to say. Because it, you could say Chase Young, oh, he's going to be good this year. I would argue he was great last year. But okay, you're going big breakout. So
this is going to be Khalil Mack 2.0. This is going to be the next Aaron Donald kind of contender. It's not going to be it's Aaron Donald's the best defender in the league and Khalil Mack's up there too. No, Chase Young's going to be up there, and he's going to be up there quick. This is the same thing with Kyle Pitts drafted at tight end. It's like, yeah, Kyle Pitts is going to be really good, but no, Kyle Pitts is going to be up there for one of the best tight ends in the league, extremely fast, and Chase Young is no different. Didn't have double-digit sacks last year, which isn't a knock on the guy at all, considering, he's the second overall pick from the draft in front of Joe Burrow, and he had conversation of being, I think I lost Cody on here. Oh, well, he will join later on in here. But Chase Young getting drafted second overall, he was literally the draft pick that Kyle Pitts was this year in terms of, this guy's going to be a Hall of Famer at the end of his career. And Chase Young, had a great rookie season. Prepare for a Defensive Player of the Year, season this next year. But we finally have Cody back now. I just was saying Chase Young is going to be a front runner for Defensive Player of the Year this year, and hopefully build Washington up to get another NFC East title. I think they're one of the best teams to get it this year. So
he certainly has the ability to be one of the best defensive ends, just right away. If he wasn't already last year, the dude is incredibly talented. The fact that he even got himself into the Heisman, conversation as a defensive end in the, way the offensive-driven football that we play now is
Nick Bosa that played with each other, right? So
yeah. Well, it was a run of just Ohio State defensive ends over and over again. Nick Bosa was drafted, and then I remember hearing like Chase Young might be better, and it was like, what? Nick Bosa was insane, number 2 overall. Well, Chase Young was better. Nick Bosa didn't play, but his last year. But they both are up there. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Chase Young doubles his sack total, be at 7.5, get to 15. Not surprising. He's playing on a great Washington defense that
defensive line already is up there. One of the best.
So that certainly helps him out. You can double him, but you'll get kind of screwed over somewhere else. Yeah. So it allows him the space to kind of make plays. So he certainly is up there already, but this could be the year. I would not be surprised if he makes that leap. And we're talking about him as one of the best edge rushers.
This is just following that trend of young talents having good rookie years and then exploding their second year. This is the next guy who's going to do it. Right there with Justin Herbert. He's the next guy who's going to do it.
Yeah, I'm going much more obscure with this next one, to the point.
Yeah, I didn't know this guy beforehand, but it makes sense though.
To the point where Ryan had to ask me who he was when I wrote his name in the doc. But hopefully, if you have been keeping up with the NFL and maybe playing some fantasy football and scouring the waiver wire from time to time, you know who Russell Gage is, because he is a Falcons receiver that was relevant last year. There was some times, I saw him get picked up in the waiver wire in my league, and I thought that's a pretty good play. Like he had some he had some good weeks, and he's a very talented guy who's also really young. He is only, I mean, he's 25, I believe, this year. He's only played 3 seasons. And this past year, he got 8 starts because Julio Jones was out. And he turned that into 72 catches for 786 yards and 4 touchdowns. So he's already showed what he can do in limited opportunities. Obviously, when Julio Jones is there, he goes to being the third option and is kind of, could be a bit underwhelming. But Julio Jones is gone. He's the number 2 receiver. Obviously, Kyle Pitts is there. But I don't see Kyle Pitts taking up. Kyle Pitts is not going to be Julio Jones, obviously. He's going to be incredible. But, I don't see him taking away enough from, a guy like Russell Gage to make him irrelevant. Obviously, Calvin Ridley is going to take a huge step up, but he already did that. Everybody knows Calvin Ridley. But Russell Gage, could do the Calvin Ridley thing where Calvin Ridley was kind of around, and then last year, boom, he shot up because some offenses are just great for 2 receivers, and this has already been one of them, and Russell Gage has been that guy. They didn't do anything to replace Julio Jones. Obviously, they may not have known that was going to happen a while ago, but I don't expect them to make another move because I think they believe in Russell Gage. So this is going to be a huge year for Russell Gage. If you're a fantasy player, Ryan, I know this might help you out. I've heard you complain about your fantasy team quite a bit.
It was just this last year. This last year.
Look for Russell Gage. He could be a nice sleeper for your fantasy team and certainly for the Atlanta Falcons.
It was just this last year, and I will say Dalvin Cook absolutely saved me in a blockbuster trade halfway in. But no, the only, like you said, the only kind of thing to be concerned about is how involved is Kyle Pitts going to be. And you spoke a little bit about Julio Jones's injury history this last year. Calvin Ridley got hurt as well, so hopefully that doesn't become a reoccurring issue. But in terms of Atlanta keeping their offense going and kind of like a pass-heavy offense, they don't have Todd Gurley anymore. This could speak a lot for Russell Gage's career if he wants to stay in Atlanta and how much longer they're going to stick with Matt Ryan. Who knows if they're going to take a quarterback in the draft in the next couple of years, or they're going to pick one up in the offseason. This could say a lot about him solidifying a spot on the roster. So, I will keep him on my radar, not only on fantasy, but I will make sure to keep up. The fact that he had a quiet borderline 800-yard receiving season.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the thing. Can he add 250 yards and 4 more touchdowns now that Julio Jones is gone, and that'll get him to 1,008? The baseline is already there, and not enough people know about him. So I think he's going to be there's going to be a lot of, who is this guy? What the heck? When he's playing really well. And I'm just going to be sitting here like, I knew it. I told you guys. You should you listen to NFL Dash, about guys like Russell Gage. So if that is any more of an incentive.
That's your
give me your.
That's your second big prediction on NFL Dash. You had Julio go into the Titans, and now it's Russell Gage will have 1,000 yards.
Oh season. Yeah, we'll get. Sure, why not? I'll put it out there. Russell Gage 1,000 yards. We might have to start keeping track of these things, but I'm sure we'll get into some more. I'll have some more predictions down the line for sure. But give me your prediction for your third and final breakout guy.
So third, I went a little outside the household name territory and picked a Gerald Everett, who's now on the Seattle Seahawks, who's going to be their number 1 tight end option, knowing that he was kind of the number 2, sometimes number 1 option at tight end for LA behind Tyler Higbee. I will say thank you for giving me 0 points when I needed you at times, Tyler Higbee, on my fantasy team. But Gerald Everett is kind of an underutilized tight end that he's never had above 500 yards receiving. I don't think, and it's not. I don't think he's had injury history. I could be wrong about that, but the past 2 years he's played 16 games, so he's been there. He was a little underutilized. Now that the Rams' former passing coordinator is now the offensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks, and now Gerald Everett is over there, and Russell Wilson works with every single receiver you throw at him. I mean, to have and now there's not Jacob Hollister there at tight end anymore. There's no more Greg Olsen, I don't think, anymore. Gerald Everett is going to be the guy.
Just a few games of Will Dissly until he gets injured.
Pretty
That's
much,
all he's got to contend against.
Yeah,
but
I was just going to say Gerald Everett,
I
think will finally surpass 500 yards. I think he'll get probably 700 to 800 and maybe dance around 7 to 8 touchdowns as well. Yeah. Considering it's Russell Wilson throwing to him. Yeah, DK is going to be the main guy. Then Tyler Lockett's going to be there. But there's no more David Moore either. You got to fill in a spot. You got to fill in a spot somewhere. And Chris Carson is not going to be the third receiving threat for Seattle. It's going to be
called Dwayne Eskridge. But yeah, I mean, I think you brought up, those things for Gerald Everett that I agree. And I mean, the big thing just being that there's not a lot of competition for him. He should be the starting tight end. And then the fact that he comes over along with a guy who is familiar with him in the passing coordinator, Shane Waldron, I believe is his name. So certainly he has an idea of how he's going to use Gerald Everett, and he knows what he's getting in that player and how he fits. He already fits in that type of passing offense. So, yeah, I'm definitely excited to see what he can do. And, I mean, just being realistic and being honest, the tight end position is not, incredibly star-studded. I mean, he could easily be a top 10 tight end because I don't want to say it's not that hard, but you're not competing against superstars for being a top 10 tight end. So there's nothing to say that he can't have a big year and do that. And I've got another Seahawk for mine. I normally don't like to go with guys going into their second year because a lot of times it's just implied, they get a bigger role, they kind of just develop more and take that next step up. But I really like the potential of what Jordan Brooks can do this year. If maybe you know who Jordan Brooks is,
I do.
Don't.
Yeah.
No, I know you do.
I was just assuming that you thought I didn't know. But
I know you know who Jordan Brooks is because he's on the Seahawks. But saying to the everybody else, you might not know who Jordan Brooks is. But to help jog your memory, you probably heard him get drafted by the Seahawks and then went, "What? Who is this guy?" If that helps you out, which a lot of Seahawks draft picks do, but. He looked really good down the stretch. I think the reason that they drafted him is because he's a perfect fit for the defense. That they like to draft guys that fit, and he certainly does. KJ Wright is gone. He's still a free agent. He could possibly come back, but the fact that he has not by now, I think, is a huge vote of confidence for Jordan Brooks, and the fact that this Seattle staff believes that he can be that guy next to Bobby Wagner. And so I'm really excited to see what he can do. I think just the fact that he'll probably be starting will be huge for him, and the fact that he's going into another year. And we've talked about it a lot, is the fact that, I mean, rookies didn't get normal off seasons. It was it was COVID for them too. So he's get a full entire season training with the team. I hope he's right next to Bobby Wagner, learning everything that he possibly can. He's right now he's the linebacker of the future. I think he can also be the linebacker of the present and just be a really good piece next to him and just make a ton of plays. KJ Wright did it last year. And I really like getting a little choked up talking about Jordan Brooks, I guess. But I really like just his athleticism and his capabilities, and I think this could be a big breakout year for Jordan Brooks. And a lot of people that think he's a bust will be eating their words.
He's going to have considerable shoes to fill, considering not only KJ, but I mean, the Seahawks tried to bring back Bruce Irvin until he got injured really early in the season. Yeah. And I guess their Super Bowl MVP is, in fact, Malcolm Smith. And, of course, also they brought in Michael Kendricks before a bunch of Michael Kendricks drama happened.
Oh, I like to call him Prison Mike. That's what I like to call Michael Kendricks, even though he never went, but he's eventually
he had some issues, yes, off the field, and he's gonna have considerable shoes to fill. I do like Jordan Brooks as well. He's the last first round pick that the Seahawks have made, and they're not gonna have a first round pick going into this next year either, I don't think.
No.
So this is I think he's the first round pick since Rashad Penny. And Rashad Penny was the first round pick since Jermaine Ifedi.
I think LJ Collier was in there somewhere, but
perhaps.
But yeah, not a great history there. But I think Jordan Brooks could
Seahawks are not very
bring
good.
some relevancy back to these first round picks.
Yeah, Seahawks are not very good at picking in the first round. But Jordan Brooks, they're trying to make sure that the linebacker situation is going to be still going to be in the top tier going into this next year. I mean, people like to throw in the Buccaneers linebacking core is the best in the league.
Very good.
Back when KJ was on the team with Bobby alongside him, I'd throw him right in that conversation as well, just off of Bobby alone. So Jordan Brooks is going to have a Goliath to work with Bobby Wagner. But I mean, what better year to have a breakout season than this year? And of course, he's going to play some considerable big time games, considering the NFC West is just packed.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to play the Cardinals twice. He's going to play the Niners and the Rams twice. There's going to be big games for him to play.
Yeah, so he'll have some eyes on him. But that's all of our breakout players. We're going to move on to maybe some breakout teams, so to say. I'm talking Super Bowl sleepers. So Ryan, I'll let you start it off. I know my team is a little bit more of a deeper slumber than what you've got going on there, but I'll let you state your case.
I will say honorable mention, of course. I will put the Colts in there, considering I think a lot of people are sleeping on the Colts.
Big Carson Wentz guy.
Yeah, I think the Titans are now taking up the majority of the headlines now, considering the AFC South, and people are thinking the Titans are just going to be the next Super Bowl champions, or at least the AFC championship. They're blowing up Julio Jones a lot, but I would like to throw the Colts in as an honorable mention, but I think the Ravens are finally going to make not the jump that everyone's been expecting, but just the results that people have been expecting. I mean, ever since Lamar Jackson's Super Bowl season, MVP season, people were expecting him to be right up there in the AFC Championship game with Patty Mahomes there. And it did not work out that way. They got embarrassed by the Titans, and the Titans campaign went on real strong that year. I was really rooting for him, but Lamar Jackson did not have a great playoff that year. He played Buffalo this last year in the playoffs. Huge pick six that absolutely destroyed all momentum that they had late in the game. And people have been kind of expecting the world for Lamar Jackson. I know some people expected the Ravens to have one of, if not the best record in the AFC last year, and it didn't work out that way. They also have an immensely difficult division to compete with the Browns and the Steelers alone, and the Bengals not too far behind with Joe Burrow kind of coming up. But the Ravens going into this next year, I mean, I'm looking at their schedule, and I see an 11-6 or a 12-5 record, and that's not necessarily saying they're going to be a division champion, because I still think the Browns are ahead of them in that regard. But they have considerable luck with the beginning half of their season, where I think they can squeeze out of there with only one loss to the Chiefs in week 2. But I think they could beat the Chargers in their own stadium. I do think they could beat the Colts. I do think they could go on the road and beat Miami, but that's a little bit of a toss-up. But the problem is them playing the Browns and Steelers twice a year. They'll probably trade games with. They'll sweep the Bengals, and I think week 16 against the Rams, I think might be a loss, or I think that might. Their second to last game of the year is against the Rams.
Yeah,
I think that might be a loss, but they're going to be the top wildcard team in the AFC. It's going to be a hard road to get to the Super Bowl, but they've had 2 trips these past 2 seasons. The offensive line got better. The receivers got better. Lamar Jackson is still getting better. He's becoming more of a prominent thrower of the football, and not just a runner, and not just a running back. You know, like the Ravens, I think, are a sleeper to win the Super Bowl. I'm not saying they're a favorite above teams such as the Chiefs, Bucks, Browns, even I think the Bills can be in that conversation as well. But there are sleepers among the top contenders in the NFL.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. I like their value in terms of they're not being looked at the same way as some of these top tier contenders, but I think that if they put it all together, they could be a legitimate Super Bowl candidate. But my team, like I mentioned, real deep sleeper. I'm going with the Washington football team.
Yeah, this is hibernation sleeper right
Few
here.
things. I mean, they were in the playoffs last year, so they had
They were in the
I mean,
NFC
what?
East, but okay.
But still, you make it to the. I mean, it's March Madness,
They
baby. Make it
almost
to the
beat the Bucks.
dance.
They almost gave the Bucks a run
Yeah.
for their money, but sure.
I mean, once you make it there, 1-14 shot. So the first step to winning a Super Bowl is to get into the playoffs. They've done that already, so it's there. I think that they have a very, there's a very high likelihood that they can win the division again, and get there. And we talked about Chase Young and that defensive line. I think that the Washington defense might be the best defense in the NFL this year. I mean, they were arguably up there last year, and I can't think of much that they really lost. I don't think they did much. I mean, they kind of are keeping that same unit together. They added.
Can't remember if they
a
lost
first.
Ryan Kerrigan, but
I think they lost Ryan Kerrigan, but he wasn't really doing much for
Right.
them. They kind of phased him out, so they didn't lose a lot of vital pieces. And they added, oh God, what was his name? They added a linebacker. It wasn't Nick
well, they
Bolton.
added
It
quite the
was
quarterback
Jamin
to
Davis.
lead him to the promised
Davis.
land.
And yes, they added Ryan Fitzpatrick at quarterback. Still don't rule out my guy Taylor Heineke winning that job, just saying. But it's not that crazy to think that Ryan Fitzpatrick could win a Super Bowl if the defense is elite. We've seen it before. Trent Dilfer, ever heard of him? We've seen defenses lead teams to Super Bowls. Obviously, the Seahawks defense led them to a Super Bowl that year. Russell Wilson was better, but Russell Wilson was young. He wasn't the Russell Wilson he is now. We've seen Eli Manning win 2 Super Bowls, including one against the undefeated Patriots, because the defense was that damn good. The Washington defense could possibly get to that level.
And you can throw in the Niners recently as well.
Yeah. Jimmy G was not great. And then throwing it back even further, I mean, guys like Kerry Collins have played in a Super Bowl. I mean, so it's a leap for sure. But Rex Grossman played in a Super Bowl against the Colts. So those two guys lost. But I mean, there's a saying: defense wins championships. Obviously, that was before the NFL as it is today, but it still holds up. I mean, look at the team that won last year, Tampa Bay, had an incredible defense, a defense that arguably won them that game because, I mean, no, I don't want to say arguably, they won them that game. They didn't allow the Chiefs to get in the end zone. So if the defense really goes crazy and can be that good, then I think Ryan Fitzpatrick is solid enough to do it. He is the bottom, he is right at the bottom of the guys I think are serviceable enough to quarterback a good team. He's a veteran. He knows what he's doing. He won't lose you games. Probably won't win you any, but he won't lose you them. And then he's got pretty good weapons. He's got Terry McLaurin. What is that?
He won't lose. Sorry, he won't lose you games, but he won't win you them either.
Well, like what I'm saying is he's not going to give you.
He's not going to
more,
throw a game.
He's not going to give you more wins than your team is like constructed. Like he's not going to boost your team up because you have Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's gonna steer the ship like just how it's going. He's not going to do anything crazy. He's not going to be the reason you lose a game. He's not going to be the reason you win a game. That's a better way to say it.
I hope that was
he's
talked
just
about
gonna be
in their
there.
contract negotiations when he signed with the team. Hey,
Probably.
we really want
I mean,
you
there's a reason
because you're not going to lose us a game and you're not really going to win.
He's been doing that. He's been doing that for years. It's the reason he's played for 19 different teams or whatever the hell it is. I mean, that's what he just did for the Dolphins. Dolphins almost made the playoffs because Ryan Fitzpatrick was decent. And so he's got Terry McLaurin. He's got Antonio Gibson. The offense is promising. And so
I'd also like to throw out there Fitzpatrick has never played in a playoff game, but just saying.
Now's the time to change that. But You know, I mean, I put any of my money or any like tie to this, absolutely not. But
All right then.
it's
That's
if we're
okay.
talking deep sleepers, like am I like what? Like if you simulate the season 100 times, do they make it to one? Maybe. You know, I don't know, but I just think if the defense is really this good, if they could be a first or second best defense in the league, then I think it's in the conversation just because the defense could be that good.
We'll just have to load up Madden and simulate a season 100 times and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, hey, you never know. You never know. But that's going to do it for this week. We will be back with you next week again for another episode of NFL Dash. And if you haven't seen any of the previous ones, you can go check them out on the Dash Sports YouTube channel, as well as following Dash Sports TV on socials, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, to stay up to date on what we're doing and all of the other shows that we've got going on. But thank you for tuning in, and we will see you again soon.